everyone, so today I thought I'd talk to you a bit about how to choose the fabric for the pattern that you've got that you want to make. So this is another part of sewing that a lot of people struggle with as a beginner. As you get more experience, you tend to kind of just understand how different fabrics work, and it does take a little bit of fabric knowledge, sort of knowing what types of fabric are like and what patterns kind of work well for the fabrics you want. So the first place to start when you're looking for fabric is, if you're following a pattern, to take a look. So I've got a pattern here, at the fabric suggestions on the back. So normally it will tell you on the back or in the leaflet, if you've got an independent pattern, what sort of thing you should be looking for to make the style you want. So this one's like a top and a skirt. So normally it will say on here, it's saying for the tops, which is A, B and C, you need a stretch knit, and then the bottom, the skirt, you can use in other things, so non-stretch fabrics like chambray or cotton. So that's a good indicator when you're just starting out of what sort of fabric you need and what it'll work well in, and also how easy it's going to be to sew in those fabrics. Some are harder to sew in certain fabrics than others. And there's always a good rule of thumb if you're a beginner for what sort of fabrics to go for. So there's millions of different types of fabrics in the world. You will always find a new one that you've never come across. We still do, that you're like, oh, never heard of that before. What's that like? So we do try and sort of describe in the descriptions on the website how it moves and what it's like to sew with. But generally, if you're a beginner starting out, you want to look for fairly stable fabrics. So you're probably not going to start off with stretch fabrics or knit fabrics. Some people do, but a lot of people are a little bit scared of the stretch in them basically, and they can move a bit more when you work with them. So the basic rule of thumb is, if you're a beginner, you want to pick something that's easy to work with, that's not going to move, because you'll find the most success in like making nice straight lines if you need them, and nice neat sewing. So you want to start off with something like cotton or chambray that doesn't have a lot of movement. So some of the kind of typical fabrics that you'll find a lot of places are things like 100% cotton. So these tend to be like quilting weights like this. So this is what we call a medium weight or quilting weight cotton. If I move it, you'll see it's got a little bit of structure. It doesn't sort of drape that well. So it will hold the shape a bit. And this sort of thing is where you want to start as a beginner, because it's not going to move too much under your machine. So you're not slipping and sliding and having trouble keeping to your seam allowance. It will just stay nice and smooth under the machine. So these sorts of things you'll use on easy projects like skirts, say a wrap skirt or pyjama bottoms or something simple like that. You can get lighter weights, which are poplins. So they are, I haven't got one to show you. They're a bit lighter weight version of that, basically a little bit thinner. You can also go for something that's got a little bit more drape but isn't as hard to work with. So this is a polyester peach skin, which is another one that we would normally recommend for a beginner, because you've got the nice hang to it, but it doesn't really move too much when you sew it. If your garment requires something a bit more drapey, then you probably want to go for something like a viscose. Now these do hang really nicely, but also because they're quite lightweight, they can move a little bit more. So you may have to use other techniques to help stop it moving. So that's something I wouldn't recommend for a beginner, but if you're trying to take a step on from your beginner, that's probably a next best option to go for. For beginners, another one that's easy to go with is something like linen or linen mixes. So this is a linen viscose blend. Because of the linen in it, it's a little bit more stable, but it does have just a touch of drape to it. So that's easier to work with, and not too difficult, but you get it in lots of nice designs as well, and you can make quite a variety of outfits in that. If you are advancing, then you might want to branch into stretch fabrics. So you've got things like jersey, but obviously you've got all of this stretch to account for when you're sewing, so they are a little bit trickier to work with. So these are sort of your three kind of basic types of fabric, I guess. And yeah, stick to cottons and linens if you're a beginner, because you're going to find those the easiest to work with.